first time in 3 years.
They are destroying them.
And today, Damwon Gaming will shut down Suning.
When you think of the legacy of Damwon, you think of peak League of Legends. A band of players who came all the way from Challengers Korea in 2018 to world champions in Shanghai, China in just 2 years. A feat they achieved by outclassing the competition without breaking much of a sweat. Behind that success, you think of Canyon, one of the best junglers in League's history, single-handedly dominating games with his carry-centric playstyle.
But you know, Steel, your smite is on D, and oh, that is the combo! That's what they were looking for. Canyon sets him up, Showmaker knocks him down.
Or the right hand of Damwon, Showmaker, who has consistently proven himself to be a beast of a mid laner, whether suffocating his rivals out of lane or finding the perfect roam timers to lead his team to victory. Then there's the whirlwind that Nuguri left to the top lane meta, pushing limits on his Jace, finding the perfect flanks on Kennen, or just being a reliable tank for his team on Ornn. And how could we forget the master chef of the Rift, Beryl, back-to-back-to-back world finalist known for his off-meta picks, and the only player in the team to have 2 world championships under his belt.
And they've got the window, all he needs is Beryl's follow-up. Support Heimerdinger, baby, making it look beautiful this game.
But in the past year and months leading up to their rise to the top in Worlds 2020, these same players were struggling to make playoffs in the LCK. As stacked as they were, you'd think that they were running the league and were miles ahead of everybody else. But no. A bronze finish in the LCK and a top 8 in Worlds was all Damwon could achieve. That is until Jang, Ghost, Yong-jun came along. One look at Damwon back then and it's easy to see how Ghost came to be known as the team's proverbial weakest link. But Ghost was more than that. Dare we say he was the one that got them through the finish line to lift the Summoner's Cup. Ghost's 9-year-long career has now come to its end, but his story, as the most underrated world champion in the game's history, has yet to be told. Ghost's journey started at the bottom. Unlike prodigies like Faker or Jackie Love who found success in their first year, Ghost had to tirelessly grind for his ring, and it all started in 2015. Ghost was picked up by legacy organization CJ Entus back in 2015, the very same team that housed legends like Insect, Dade, Ambition, and Mad Life throughout its long history. Because of his age, he couldn't play for the team until a year later, and when he was finally called on as a substitute in LCK 2016 summer season, the poor rookie didn't get a chance to prove himself, going 0-2 in his first 2 and only competitive games in CJ Entus. The team would then continue its slow descent into obscurity, and after finishing the 2016 regular season in last place, they got demoted to the Challenger League in a devastating 0-3 loss to ESC Ever. As Ghost wasn't exactly a part of the roster that lost to ESC Ever, the newly promoted team saw potential in the up-and-coming marksman and picked him up in the 2017 season for when the team would rename itself to BBQ Olivers. Unfortunately, for the aspiring rookie, being a part of the starting roster wasn't all it cut out to be, as he found himself struggling in the bottom rung of the LCK. BBQ Olivers would consistently finish in 8th to 10th place every season, and throughout his 2 long years with them, Ghost faced constant criticism for his play. He had the highest average deaths per game out of every AD, and cost BBQ games with his poor positioning alone. The community was harsh on Ghost, and his reputation sunk even further with the team's eventual relegation in 2018. Which, funnily enough, was the same relegation tournament where Damwon was promoted to the LCK. It is worth noting, however, that the team's poor performance wasn't his fault alone. BBQ was struggling on all fronts, from jungler Trick to support Ignar, and although BBQ went dead last, they had flashes of hope in the times they managed to beat behemoths like SKT or Kingzone, and thankfully for Ghost, Sandbox felt the same way. It wouldn't be until 2019 that Ghost would finally start reaping the years of hardship he had endured thus far. Sandbox Gaming took on the AD carry once they had taken the slot of the newly promoted Team Battle Comics in the LCK. Ghost played with a chip on his shoulder and set out to prove the doubters wrong in his time with Sandbox. And this season, the soon-to-be world champion would truly earn his nickname, the Holy Ghost, for his immaculate level of play. A huge part of their success that year was the solid play of Ghost in the bottom lane. Whether carries that played in your face like Lucian, Draven, or Kalista, or his signature supportive picks like Ashe and Karma, Ghost was starting to turn his reputation around as he evolved as a player, not only with his style of play, but with his leadership in game. Sandbox, a ragtag team of nobodies, some way somehow managed to claw their way to a third-place finish in the LCK's regular season, above the then roster of Damwon Gaming and just a step below SK Telecom T1. While the team would fail to go deep into the playoffs and ultimately fail to qualify for Worlds, Ghost came out of nowhere to prove that they had what it takes to hang with the best. With the season like that behind his back, you would think that Ghost had to have a team waiting for him in the postseason. But because of a fallout with the LPL team he intended to sign with that year, Ghost was forced to take a hiatus at the start of the spring 2020. And just like that, his career was at a standstill once more.
제가 이제 원하는 게 좀 되게 제가 좋고 잘하는 모습으로 월드 같은 무대, 큰 무대에 진출해서 그런 무대에서 팬분들이랑 이렇게 같이 소통하면서 경기하는 게 제 원하는 그런 목표였는데 그 길까지 도달하는 게 좀 쉽지 않아 보여서 은퇴를 결정을 했던 것 같아요. 좀 롤드컵을 목표로 얘기를 많이 했었던 것 같아요. 근데 뭔가 해외랑은 뭔가 인연이 닿을 듯 말 듯 하면서 안 닿는 게 그냥 결국 뭔가 약간 안 맞는 그런 느낌 아닐까 약간 그런 생각이 들어요.
Now, it's week 6 of the 2020 spring season. Damwon are halfway through this split with a 5-7 record, on the verge of not making the playoffs. After making it to Worlds quarterfinals last year, the team had higher expectations, seeing that they had now had the experience to hopefully take it further this season. They were in a tough spot. Their ADC Nuclear is severely underperforming, and it was the middle of the season. They didn't have too many choices left, but lucky for them, there was one free agent who just came off a hot season with Sandbox. Damwon had their eye on Ghost for quite some time already. They went way back and have had near similar paths to begin with. From playing in the same relegation tournament in 2018, meeting in the spring playoff shortly after, and even both getting taken down by SKT in that year's summer playoffs. The only difference being Damwon was able to qualify for Worlds after a successful run in the regional gauntlet. So it just felt like fate that Ghost was now joining the team, as he then had the chance to redeem himself. At the time, however, his signing was seen as more of a stopgap than an upgrade. And given the ill favor against Ghost, expectations were set low for the team. Because, let's be honest, how do you stand out when you have players like Canyon, Showmaker, and Nuguri in the team? But, by God, the moment Ghost became a part of the squad, everything clicked for Damwon. After getting signed onto the team, Ghost and Damwon finished the second half of the spring season with a 4-2 record, beating teams like T1 and Africa to clinch the playoff spot. And while they couldn't finish strong in the playoffs, it proved to be a start of Damwon's prime. The 2020 summer season saw a breakthrough for Damwon with a 16-2 record, one of the most dominant performances in the LCK in past years. But what, do you ask, was Ghost's place in all of this? The role of marksman, or ADC, has long been defined as a flashy role marked by the undoubtable raw mechanical skill of players like Uzi, Jackie Love, Gumayushi, Viper, but in that year, Ghost perfected his style of play that fit Damwon to a T, his ability to play weak side. Ghost was a true role player, playing whatever the team needed to enable his team and win the game, whether that's an Ezreal that can play independently during the laning phase, a starving Senna, or his classic Jhin. He played the true antithesis to the traditional AD carry's carry or die trying mindset. Ghost absorbed so much pressure on the map, yet always lost gracefully regardless of his lane state. Despite having the highest first blood percentage of any bot laner, he only died an average of 1.3 times a game, all the while staying even in gold and XP at 15 minutes. And even then, Ghost still continued to put out consistent high DPS for the team throughout the entire season, still playing his role. This allowed the rest of his team to play to their strengths, unlocking Barrel to do cross-map plays, Canyon to play forward as much as he wants, or Nuguri push in while Ghost single-handedly deterred dives down bot. However they wanted to play the game, they could do it, all because of Ghost's willingness to forego his self to lift the team. One perfect example of this came in Game 3 of G2 vs Damwon in the Worlds 2020 semifinals. You can see from the draft, Damwon opted to pick Lulu to help enable Canyon's Graves in the game. Looking at the early game lane states, it's clear that G2 cannot hope to punish a pushing Lulu or Syndra in the solo lanes, which leaves Jankos to gank one place and one place only, the bottom lane. With Jin and Pantheon set up and Kindred to follow up, they'd be looking to punish the helpless Ashe early on and push their lead from there. However, a failed dive that results in a 2-for-2 trade means that Damwon now have a Graves with farm and tempo advantage. With this advantage, Canyon plays aggressively and moves to secure Dragon and Rift Herald while Ghost and Barrel continue to hold down the forward and bot lane. Despite the early CS deficit, and as much as G2 botched that dive, Ghost is up 4 kills more than he should be and gave his team the space to secure more objectives and eventually suffocate G2 out of the game.
Out, Barrel trying to find a priority target to stun. Perks for now untouched. The rest of the team now leaping out. Cavs trying to jump back in, but how much damage can he actually get done on the backside of this team fight? One getting taken down. That's Mickey out of the fight. Wonder stepping forward. Cavs in the middle of everybody. Curtain call, but who's actually going to go down? Cavs running for the hills. Shuriken flip takes him out to safety, but the flash in, the point blank shot from Canyon to finish the job. The polymorph as well. Wonder going to get taken down. It is Elder or the game for Damwon Gaming. They can choose what they want to do. Wonder trying to get just a bit of damage back.
Despite his weak side playstyle, that doesn't mean that Ghost was any less of a player than his team and the AD carries that came before him. Ghost was a world-class player in his own right, and he proved it through his consistent performances all throughout Worlds. Up until the moment he ended Suning's tournament run on Caitlyn, of all champions, to lift the Summoner's Cup once and for all. The next year, Ghost and Damwon, now DWG KIA, would run it back, but with Khan in the top lane in place of Nuguri as he left for FPX in the LPL. For the most part, the team continued to find success winning the regular seasons back-to-back in spring and summer. Ghost would show even greater flexibility in his play, pulling out Tristana, Kai'Sa, and Ziggs in games that mattered and played well while doing so.
Canyon with a nice stasis, keeping himself alive, but it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade. Khan has joined the fight. Ghost is going in. Shalu's going down. Cryan's about to die. Quadra kill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's Damwon Kia.
But despite their best efforts, Khan's curse in international tournaments was just too strong. They couldn't quite finish the job in both the MSI and Worlds 2021 finals with a heartbreaking 3-2 loss against RNG and another more devastating 3-2 loss against EDG later in the year. And while many will want to point fingers at Ghost for their losses, he was never truly the weak point of the team. Eventual world champion, one of the best AD carries as of late, Viper, even went on to say that Damwon's bot lane was very strong, citing how he perfectly fits Damwon and can perform best when the meta suits him.
예, 들었던 점은 담원 기획에 정말 최적화되어 있는 원딜러라고 생각을 하고 지금 메타에서 가장 좋은 모습을 보여줄 수 있는 그런 원거리 딜러라고 생각을 하고요. 보면서 배울 점이 되게 많더라고요. 되게 놀랐던 게 보면서 항상 배울 점이 많은 선수라고 생각하고 또 그렇게 되고 싶고 돈 받아야겠다 생각을 하고요. 그런 약간 저에게 약간 동기부여를 시켜주고 약간 계속해서 저를 자극시켜주는 그런 좋은 선수인 것 같아요.
When you truly take a hard, objective look at his career, Ghost played at the level befitting of a world finalist 2 years back-to-back. Not a lot of players can say that they consistently held their ground against the best teams. And he did this, starting as a substitute on a bottom-tier team. But what's more is that Ghost proved that you don't have to be a mechanical prodigy like Gumayushi or Ruler to succeed. He was the perfect fit for Damwon at the right time and the right place. If it were anyone else on Damwon, perhaps we'd have never seen Showmaker and Canyon rise the way they did in 2020. But what we do know is that when Ghost came in, Damwon stepped up to become the world champions. And while Ghost's career might have fallen off after leaving Damwon, you cannot deny his contributions he made as part of the iconic DK lineup. He had more than a good run, more than most pros will ever hope to accomplish. from the bottom of the ladder at BBQ to world champion and continuing to compete at that level for back-to-back seasons. He was the last puzzle piece to Damwon Gaming, and who is, we think, the unsung hero that most definitely deserves a one last round of applause.
25살이라는 나이 정말 너무나도 소중하고 의미 있는 쉽게 할 수 없는 경험들을 너무 많이 한 것 같아서 그거 자체로 너무 감사하고 저한테 너무 소중하고 그것들로 인해 너무 행복하고 즐거운 시간들도 많이 보냈던 것 같아요. 그래서 이런 것들에 되게 감사하면서 행복하게 살아가려고 하고 팬분들 덕분에 여기까지 올 수 있었던 것 같고 저의 길다면 길고 짧다면 짧은 이 프로 생활 함께 해주셔서 정말 너무 감사드립니다. 사랑합니다.